And that's, that's where the real fight is at. This is where is our money going? Where are our tax dollars going? Again, when you think about the racism in our society, we think about how much money is going into our prison systems. We have more people in prison in the United States of America than India or China. India or China have billions of people in their populations. We're only about 300 million in the United States, but we have more people in prison than India or China. And who are the people in prison? It's black, brown, and poor white people in prison. And then the prisons are privatized. The prisons are privatized. So they are actually making money off of the bodies of our children. A lot of people don't know this, but when they started attacking immigrants all of a sudden, because people had been coming back and forth, and nobody was saying anything. The immigrants are working hard, they're picking our food, they're working in our restaurants. You go to a nice French restaurant, you look in the kitchen, they're all from Guatemala, they're cooking the food, They're cleaning our buildings, taking care of our children, taking care of our elderly, doing all of this work, and nobody was saying anything about it. Then all of a sudden, in 2006, they came out with these bills to really start attacking immigrants. Well, you know what that had to do with? Prisons. I remember meeting with in Cesar's office there in Wisconsin, and I spoke to his staff and I said, why is Congressman Cesar so obsessed with immigration? Wisconsin is not a border state, right? But what do they have? And they couldn't give me an answer. I said, look, everybody's against your bill that they were trying to pass it, which was like the 1070 bill in Arizona. I said all the religions, labor unions, community groups, nobody is supporting your legislation. Why are you trying to pass this? And by the way, they passed it in 10 days in the Congress, okay? It never, as you know, it never got out of the Senate, but in the House of Representatives, they passed it in 10 days. And they couldn't answer. And then I thought, I know why. It's about federal prisons. And when people cross the border, it's not really a crime. It's a civil offense. Because when somebody crosses the border, they're not hurting anybody. They're not causing any danger to anybody. People are just coming here to work. So why are they making this a crime? Well, guess what? They built new prisons just for the immigrants. One in Texas just for the people from El Salvador. So that's what the big fight on immigration was all about, putting more people in prison. And so, when we talk to people, that we have to kind of explain the displacement of people, why they come here, but then we also have to remind them, unless you're Native American, your people came from somewhere, right? Your people came from somewhere. And I want to say to the Latinos in the audience, when they tell us go back where you came from, tell them, hey, we didn't cross the border crossed us, right? They have found, for instance, in the state of New Mexico, where I was born, New Mexico, by the way, is part of the United States, okay? But they actually found clay vessels with chocolate in New Mexico that had come all the way from Peru, So the indigenous people used to come back and forth. They have a state in Mexico called Michoacan. Well, guess what? We have a state in the United States called Michigan, right? So isn't that very, very kind of similar, right? And so there were no borders. People went back and forth across the borders, and they traveled until we started putting the borders up there. So part of, again, what we have to do is kind of educate people on the past so that they understand that, at one time there were no borders and people were able to cross freely back and forth. So the only way that we can really kind of address some of these issues is that, we really got to educate people, and then we've got to stay involved. When we think about who are the people that are creating all of this hatred and all of this politics, and right now we're in an election year, so everything is kind of bubbling right now, and we're seeing on television these issues about people that are running for the Senate and why it's important to save the Senate, which I'll talk about in a second. But we have to look at some of the people, the big guns, the people that are really creating the policies of the United States of America. And I just picked up a copy of Rolling Stones magazine, and I recommend to everybody, and maybe you can get it on the internet, but there's a big story there about the Koch brothers, right? about the Koch brothers, and the kind of control that they have of the politics of the United States of America. And these men are worth, pick up on this, I was talking about millionaires. These brothers are worth $40 billion. Can you imagine? They have more wealth than many of our major US corporations. This one family, $40 billion. Now it'd be great if they would use some of that money for the good instead of using the money for the bad. But unfortunately, they're using their money to buy up as many Congress people. They're involved in many political races. I just got an email from my hometown there in Bakersfield, California, in Kern County, that they're actually putting money against one of our Latina women who's running for the US Congress, Amanda Renteria, right? They're already in there putting money to defeat her. And when you look at that, their history, it is sordid. It is sordid. They have been fined multi-millions of dollars for all kinds of damage that they have done to the environment. In fact, even the killing of 2 young women because they refused to maintain their gas pipes. One of them blew up and killed these 2 young teenagers, right? And then they had to go ahead and they had to settle a claim for that one. But they actually really have no shame in all of the crooked things that they have done to make their money. And yet these brothers, the Koch brothers, are trying to control our politics of the United States of America. And what the Rolling Stones article literally says that they've actually bought out the Republican Party. They have kind of bought out the Republican Party. And they were many of the sponsors, of the original sponsors of the Tea Party, which right now we have this Congress we have in the United States that's refusing to do anything. So how do we counter that? How can we counter something like the Koch brothers? How do we counter the Supreme Court decision of Citizens United, which says that corporations can give unlimited amounts of money, like these brothers, to the electoral process? Unlimited amounts of money to elect their people to the Congress and to the US Senate and to the presidency. Well, you know what? There's only one way to do it, and that is by getting out there ourselves and doing like we did the farm workers movement and organizing people to vote. Okay? I just want to give you a couple of examples of the way that we have been working on this. In California, we just recently passed a proposition called Proposition 30. And what our proposition did, and this was put on the ballot for everybody to vote on, Proposition 30 said, if you are a millionaire, you have to pay 3% more in state taxes. If you earn $500,000 a year, you pay 2% more in state taxes. If you make $250,000 a year, you pay 1% more in state taxes. As a result of that proposition, we got into our state budget over $6 billion, okay? $6 billion, because the people voted yes on that proposition. Where did that money go? The bulk of that money went to education, and part of it went to health services, you know, and things that we needed in the state. And guess what? We're going to have another $6 billion next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. Although we do have a sunset provision, I think, after a few years, and then we'll try to pass it again. But this is, you know, this is what you call people power, right? The electoral power to get some of that money from the millionaires and put it back into the general fund. Then the other thing that I want to just talk a little bit about what we're doing with the Dolores Huerta Foundation, how we're trying to actually change some of these systems. Recently, what we've been focusing on is education. You know, we have, again, a crisis in education. It's a civil rights issue because our educational system right now is, in most states, and I'm not going to say all the states, but in most states, especially the Southwest, I believe other areas also, we have a lot of discrimination against our Black and our brown students. In our area in California, Kern County, Bakersfield, California, it's like hee-haw land, you know what I mean? It's like kind of like the South, you know, this is where some great country singers came out of, like Merle Haggard and Buck Owens and all of those great singers, right? But unfortunately, the politics are pretty bad. So in our district over there in Kern County, they have suspended close to 3,000 kids out of schools. Suspended and expelled. Guess what? No surprise. Most of them are African American and Latinos, right? African Americans, 560% above the norm. Latinos, 380% above the norm. And they've suspended them for all kinds of stupid reasons. I mean, if they talk back to the teacher, if they talk back to the security guard on the playground, etc. Now, as part of Proposition 30, we got additional money that they were supposed to give to low-income kids, English learners, and foster kids. 70% by the way of the school district are kids of color. But what are they doing? They're putting $3 million to bring more police on the campuses, okay? So that, and we want positive behavior systems, we want restorative justice systems, we want to keep the kids in school because this is a straight pipeline to the prison, right? A straight pipeline to the prison system. But they're not doing that. So what are we doing? Well, we started organizing the parents. Same way we organized the farm workers union. With a few people at a time in their homes until we got the parents all together. Our first parent conference had 155 parents, okay? And the next one had 100. We've had like 5 or 6 parent conferences, and each one of them has had over 100 parents. And so the parents could tell the stories about their kids. And then we taught the parents about discipline and the procedures so that they can defend their kids, training them. And then we went to the school board, and we tried to reason with them. And they refused to reason with us. So guess what? Tomorrow, actually the day after tomorrow, on the 9th, we are filing a lawsuit against the school board, okay? We are filing a lawsuit against the school board. So we tried, they just like are in total denial of what they're doing to our kids. The future of our children is being destroyed by these people on the school board. And in addition to that, we have some openings on the school board, so we are fielding candidates to run against them, not with the Dolores Huerta Foundation because we're a nonprofit, but we have another C4 where we are actually going to try to replace these people so that we can change the whole system for our kids. So, and when I talk about this is going on, as we know, all over the country. But in order to be able to change these systems of racism and discrimination, we've really got to get on the ground. We've got to get on the ground, we've got to get people to go door to door, we've got to get them to phone bank, and this is how we change it. I call it organizing 101, right? When I first got organized by a great man, the man who taught Cesar Chavez and myself how to organize, his name was Fred Ross Sr. He was an Anglo. But he had so much faith that people could really solve their own problems. And once he taught us how to organize, I guess I got addicted. So I call myself an addicted organizer. I quit teaching school to become an organizer. And so I'm just going to ask people here in the audience if they can also commit themselves, like in this next election, to come out there and help us. And I'm going to ask you all a question. I'm going to ask you, how many of you have voted in the last election? How many of you voted? Okay, that's a really, really good number. Now, I'm going to ask you another question. How many of you actually put on your tennis shoes and got out to knock on doors to get people out to vote, or did some phone banking? Okay, well, our numbers went way down on that one. So I want to ask all of you, if this next election, if you could kind of commit to do that, if you could commit to go to an issue or a candidate and get that experience. I call it Leadership 101 is because when you're knocking on doors and you're trying to convince people that they should vote, that it really builds up their self-confidence, but also you're doing something to help democracy. Because right now we have a situation where 50% of our people do not vote. And when 50% of our people do not vote, then we get the kind of policies, the bad policies that I'm talking about, whether they be on the school board, city council, or on the Congress. So, we've got to elect people that are really going to go out there and work for us, because otherwise things are going to get worse. Isn't it? I always think it's really scary when we think of the war in Iraq, and now we have this additional problem of the ISIS. This is another group that came out of that same war. And we think, how did we possibly get into that war? Because we didn't have the information, because it was all lies, and yet it was our Congress that actually approved that war. How did we get into that war? What does that say to us as a democracy? And we have all of these other issues that we have that are before us. Well, the only way that we can really stop this, and the only way that we can change this, is that we've got to get involved. We've got to get out there, and we've got to learn what's going on. And I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands on this one, but just silently to yourself, I'm going to ask you, and I know a lot of your students that are here from other places, but even here in Carbondale, do we know who the mayor is? Do we know who the local supervisor is? Do we know who the congressperson is for this area or for your home area? Do you know who your state senator is? do you know who your U.S. Senator is? And I know one question that you will all know. How many of us know who the president is, right? That's Obama. So the thing is that we're not really taught the civic education anymore. And so people don't really know, and they don't really understand what their obligations are as citizens of our country. Because if we have a democracy and people are not involved, and they're not educated, and they're not informed, then that presents a really serious problem for our democracy. There was a Spanish philosopher named Jose Ortega y Gasset. He was in Spain before the Franco dictatorship took over Spain, and he wrote a book called The Revolution of the Masses. And his book is about people being educated and people being involved. And he said in that book, if people are not educated, if the citizens of the country are not educated, then what you have is mob rule. What you have is mob rule. And in our country, we can translate that to think of people, again, like the Koch brothers, who are really criminals in what they've done to so many people in terms of the climate, in terms of the environment, the pollution that they've done, people that have been injured because they refuse to obey the safety laws, the people that they are financing to run for Congress, and they're just going to help them get richer. This is what I call mob rule, in a way, you know, in our own society. And it's happening while we're sitting here, and you know, it's happening all around us, and we have to find a way to counter it. We have to find a way to counter it, and the one way to counter that is by voting. That is what we can do, just by voting, and making sure that we get good people elected. And by the way, some of you need to run for office, okay? Think about that. And if you think you're not qualified, just think of George Bush, right? But again, to counter Citizens United, you know, the way we can do that is by voting, because I don't care how much money they've got. I don't care how much money they've got. At the end of the day, the people that vote are the ones that are going to make the decision. In California, we had our Governor, Jerry Brown, and we finally got back. This is the second time around for Jerry. But the woman who ran against him, she was an executive for a big corporation. She spent $160 million on that gubernatorial race. He spent $35 million. But guess who won? Jerry Brown. Why did he win? Because you had the janitors, and you had the housekeepers, and you had the laborers, and you had the farm workers, and they were all out there knocking on doors to get Jerry Brown elected. And he won big. So we have, you know, people, we have the power, but we've got to get out there and do it. And I want to say something here, when I talk about elections, we've got to get public campaign reform. You know, think about that again on that bucket list, you know, public campaign reform, so that, you know, we can get the state and the government to pay for elections. So that means you, who are in this audience, can run for office and be elected. In our Dolores Huerta Foundation, even though we're a nonprofit, once our people learn how to organize, guess what? They get themselves elected to office. 12 of our people have gotten themselves elected to school board, city council, water boards, recreation boards. You know, this is what they've done on themselves, just on their own. So we just have to learn how to do that civic engagement and get out there and do it. And by the way, the women out there, okay? We've got to get more women elected and more people of color elected. Right now, if you look at our U.S. Senate, there's only a few of us up there, right? And we are 50% of the population. And sometimes women, you know why women don't run? Because they think that they've got to be so prepared to be able to run for office. Well, the guys don't think that way. They figure, I'm going to learn on the job, okay? So we as women, we can learn on the job also. And we've got to, also, just throw this in here real quick, we've got to change the way that we educate our women. Because our women are educated to be victims. You know, somebody's going to take care of you. Somebody's going to protect you. And we've got to learn that nobody's going to take care of us but ourselves, okay? We've got to be so strong that no one can dominate us or take our careers or our lives away from us. We've got to be physically strong, psychologically strong, and emotionally strong. And when I say women, I really mean the word feminist, because if you support workers' rights, immigrants' rights, LGBTQ rights, you want to protect the environment, you support labor, you are a feminist. So that means that the men and the women are also feminists, okay? If I can say it. I I just want to say about our foundation, I hope you all can support us. We're on the web, it's DoloresHuerta.org. And I'm going to have Juanita come up here and tell you in a minute how you can actually, how we can actually get engaged with us to help us, because I do want to invite you to join our movement. I know that we can make it, we can change our society, we can change our world. And remember, all of the movements start from the bottom. All of the civil rights movement, the peace movement, the environmental movement, LGBTQ movement, all start from the bottom, and so that we can make that happen. But in order to do that, we've got to make some sacrifices. And to those of you that are here from other parts of Illinois, and you come to this beautiful little town of Carbondale, I'm going to say stick it out, okay? Stick it out. Stick it out, because when we think of Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for so many years, and he used that time to educate himself, right? So you're here in Carbondale, and you're not in jail, but you can be here for the 4 or 5 years that it takes to get your degree, and so stick it out. We need to sacrifice. I have a son, my oldest son, Dolores Huerta, is a doctor. And when he was going to a school for pre-med and medical school, we never saw him. He didn't have time for dates, he didn't have time for parties, he was just there hitting the books. But you know what? He became a doctor, and I can help so many more people because he's a family practice doctor. So, students, you just got to stick it out and ask for help. If you need help, and ask somebody to help you. And sometimes, again, in our culture, we feel like if I ask for help, people are going to think I'm dumb, you know what I mean? Or it's just an ego trip. When I was working in the movement with all my 11 kids that I had to ask everybody in the world for help. Could you help me with my kids? Can you help me with my kids? I had so many babysitters I lost track, right? So we can't be ashamed to ask for help. We got to go there and ask for help, and people are out there and they will give it to us. So a couple of things I'm just going to say. I think I'm almost time for the question and answer period. But in terms of ending racism, okay? And how many of you have seen that movie, Nacho Libre? Okay, there's if you haven't seen it, look it up. It's really funny. There's a scene in Nacho Libre where Esqueleto, he says, "I believe in science." Okay, so to end racism, we have to believe in science. All right. So I'm going to ask this question. I know we have an educated group here. What is the name of our human race? Somebody shout it out. Homo sapiens. Okay, next question. Where did our human race begin? Africa. Don't we all know this? Okay, our human race started in Africa, went across the Bering Strait to the Americas, to Asia, came down to the Bering Strait to the Americas, kind of lost their color a little bit, and we have one tribe that got lost up north. They got really, really cold, and they lost their color completely, right? So now they have to go to the beach or the tanning salon to get their color back. So what does that mean? That means that we are all Africans of different shades and colors, right? Isn't that what that means? That we are all related. We're all brothers and sisters and cousins, and Obama's our cousin. Isn't that great? The Kennedys are our cousins also, The Chavez family are our cousins. We're all related. And that means we have to protect each other and we have to defend each other. And I'm going to share a word with you. I want you all to shout it out. Well, we'll do it once, but I have another thing I want you to shout out. Just to remember that we're all related, that we're all Africans. There's a word from South Africa, it's a Zulu word, and it says, we, the people, are coming together to fight for justice, okay? We are coming together to fight for justice. The word is Wozani. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and I want you to shout Wozani as loud as you can, okay? Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Wozani. All right, then I'm going to ask another question. I'm going to say, who's got the power? And I want you to say, we got the power. I'm going to say, what kind of power? You're going to say, people power, right? We have to remember that, because we can combat all of this racism and homophobia and, fighting the feminists, etc., and the labor unions. We can do it because we are the majority. We are the majority, people of color, feminists, white men of conscience, okay? We are the majority, but we've got to work together to make it happen. So I'm going to shout out, I'm going to say, who's got the power? And I want you to say, we got the power. And I'm going to say, what kind of power? I want you to say, people power. But I want you to say it really, really loud. Who's got the power? We got the power. What kind of power? People power. Who's got the power? We got the power. really hard? Can we make it happen? Can we join this movement? Can we complete this march of Dr. King and Cesar and Malcolm X and the Kennedy family, that all of them that were our drum majors, Dorothy Day and the rest of the women will say, can we do it? Like Obama said, yes we can. But by the way, when I met the president, he said, I stole your slogan. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And for the women in the room, I'm the one that came up with Cesar, puede, not Cesar. Let's move up together. We're going to say, yes, we can. We're going to put the time, the sacrifice, the commitment. We're going to make it happen. So let's all put up our hands. And remember, we don't have to have 100%. The militant few. When we started the farmers movement with Cesar, myself, and this white belt in Chavez. Okay, so let's put our hands. We're going to do sí, se puede, all together. Let's go. Sí, se puede. Before we do the questions and answers, Juanita, excuse me, my daughter. Juanita, who is also a former school teacher, she's quit teaching now after 13 years to help us with our organization with the Dolores Huerta Foundation. Okay.
In case any of you were curious, I am choice number 8. But I just wanted to let you know that you can stay involved with the work that we're doing with the Dolores Huerta Foundation. There's a few ways to get involved. You can text the word organize with your email address. You have to text the word organize before your email address to 51555. And then we'll put you on our mailing list and we'll keep you abreast of everything that's going on. You can support our foundation financially if you have the income to do that by texting the word donate and a dollar amount, whatever amount you choose is very welcome and helpful. Donate to 41444. If you can't remember any of that and you don't have anything to write it down with, you can just visit us on our website at www.doloreshuerta.org, and all of that information is there. You can sign up for our social justice network, you can donate, you can buy wonderful things from our fabulous merchandise store, many ways to support us. And if all of that is beyond your ability, don't have a cell phone, don't have a computer, don't have internet, I have cards. You can just come up to me, get a card, and write down your email address and your address, and we'll keep in touch with you. Thank you very much.